Greetings, Nimrods. Welcome back to Nimrod's Reloading 101. Today we're going to be talking about single stage presses versus progressive presses. Those of you that know me know that I don't really care for presses. But when it comes to reloading presses, I make an exception. Okay, so here we go. This is a single stage press. This is my Mech 600 Junior. Is what everybody seems to start out with as far as this part of the country. And so on these single stage presses, you'll notice that the shot bottle is on the left hand side and the powder is on the right hand side. And as we're going through here, so we're going to deprime and resize. And I actually had to put a primer in there, a fake primer, a used primer back in, because I do that in a separate operation. So all my 12 gauge holes, when they come back from the range, I run them through the depriming station and resizing station on a separate press, and basically have them all ready to go. Just makes it easier. We talk about that in a different video. But so here we go. Just put the primer in. You got to put it in manually and then press it in. And now I just dropped the powder charge, and I'm going to check that. I've checked it like 4 times already before I started running these for real. So if we're going to check it one more time, just to be a good boy on camera, and you can see I had to move the settings on the scale because I had measured the shot charge a few times just to make sure the bar was dropping an ounce and an eighth in this case. Not too much you can do about it if it's not, but we can talk about fine-tuning things in a different video, but we're going to keep it simple here. So you could change out the powder bushing if you wanted to, but if your shot bar is probably going to be a couple pellets short or proud of what it's rated for, and there's not too much you can do about it. All right, back in business here. We'll put the wad in, and then we'll hit that bar over and drop down the shot, and there we go. No accidents. Okay, now we're going to bring it over to the pre-crimp and final crimp, and we're done. So that's one shell. I'll do a few. Honestly, I haven't used this press in years for reloading target loads. I've done a couple buckshot loads and slug loads where I was just using it to drop the powder charge and crimp the shell, and everything else was done off the press. So you'll have to excuse me if I'm a little rusty with my single stage reloading here. I don't knock these things. They're great reloaders. If you're only shooting a couple boxes a week, you know, this will get you through there. But it does take a little bit of time. You know, if you read the literature, they'll tell you it takes 15 minutes to reload a box of shells. And I think that may be true if you include all the setup and cleanup afterwards. I find it's a little faster than that, but again, I haven't done it in a while. We had that infamous race with Bubba where he used the Mech and I used the Posnus Warren, and it took him exactly
37 seconds.
Well, let's say it was more like, we'll say 12 minutes. It should take 12 minutes when you're not racing and you're moving right along. So 12 minutes for a box of shells, that's not too bad. So we'll switch over now, and we'll do it on a progressive press that is also a Mech press. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change out the powder bushing out of this bar and put it in that press. Kind of curious to see if it drops the same powder charge from both presses the same. It should, but we're going to have to check and find out. All right, so Floppy Hands is going to take this bar out, and these bars are different. You cannot use a single stage bar in a progressive press, and we'll show you why in a second. So here we are on the progressive machine. This is a Mech 650, which is not the fanciest by any means of the Mech presses, progressive presses. One thing you'll notice on this, changing out the charge bar here, it takes a few more steps because there's a spring on the back and a little slide stop that I'm taking off there that the spring is attached to. And when I go to change out this powder bushing, you're going to notice that it is on the opposite side. So it is on the left-hand side as opposed to the right-hand side. So your powder is on the left and your shot is on the right, which is the opposite. And you're working the shells around the machine the opposite direction too, of course, working from the left to right, whereas on the progressive, on the single stage press, you're working from right to left. So these bars are, not only are they different in their construction, a few more holes in them for holding onto that spring and that slide stop, but the powder and bushing sides are not the same. All right, so now we're going to put some primers in here. And of course, for the video, I do something different and wrong. I did not put a full box in, and when I dropped this box in, the empty spaces on the primer box was on the bottom, so it kind of made them all slide down. And a couple of them tumbled over, so I got to poke at it for a second. You really want to take the time and make sure that they're all sitting pretty, because if you get one hung up in there, they will not slide down the tray properly and not go down the primer tube feed. Thing I do like about this press is you can see them going down, so it's you can see when you're going to have a problem with it, which is really convenient. And this press, the one thing I really do like about it is it's easy to recover from a screw up. We'll talk about that a little more later when we're looking at the Hornady or the Pacific 366 press that we're going to compare this one with. All right, so I just dropped a primer, and you have to move the little carousel by hand, and now we're pushing the primer in, and then it's also on the upstroke is going to drop the powder in, which I'm doing it slowly so I could hear it. And now that I know the powder, I'm going to measure it and see if that bushing works the same in the progressive press as it did in the single stage. And yep, it sure did. That's good. Something good for load development, and know that you can change from one press to the other with the same bushings. Okay, so we put an empty in, make sure that primer dropped, and it did, and put the wad in ready to go, because the next thing that's going to happen is that that first shell is going to get its wad, and then on the upstroke it'll get powder, or it'll get powder in the previous one and shot in that one, and so on and so forth. Every step is done again. And rotate these and press it in. I didn't show the rotate. You had to cut out a boo-boo there. So now every step is being processed here. We got one being the first half of the crimp going on. The second half of the other station will do the final crimp, and boom, we got our first shell off the press. Once you get going here and get a little rhythm, it'll speed up. Probably helps to have the wads on the side we're putting them in. So we'll get some rhythm here, and it'll speed up a little bit. Again, this is I'm not too familiar with the other progressive presses that Neff makes. I believe the grabber, which is the next one up from this, resizes. It may. I don't think it indexes them though. I could be wrong on that. It resizes them. This one doesn't. I have to do the resizing in a separate action, but I do that anyway. And then I guess the 900 series actually would rotate the carousel for you if I'm doing that manually. And it takes a little bit of practice to stop it in the right place. There's not a ball indent in this. So here we go. We're going along pretty good right now. And so what I did was I put out 25 holes and just put a stopwatch on it, and just to get a delta on how long it takes to make a box of shells of this. And it takes 4 minutes. You could actually do it a little less than that, but 4 minutes, we're going to say it's 4 minutes. So if it takes 4 minutes with the Mech 650 progressive press, and it takes 12 minutes with the Junior, the single stage press, so that's 3 times faster by my math. But again, my math isn't that good, so feel free to correct me. But yeah, that's a lot faster. So you can load a lot of shells fast, and I tend to I go through these phases where I really start shooting a lot, and boy, man, you can wipe yourself out. So you got to reload a lot of shells fast, and so the progressive press is really handy to have. And this one I got for short money, and it's great. I love it. So now we're going to take a look at the Hornady, or in this case, it's actually a Pacific, which really originally made these, but it's exactly the same thing as the Hornady 366. And this is a great press. It's not that much faster. I think a box of shells on this, and I'll time it again sometime and see for sure. But I want to say that I can do them in 2 minutes with this. I'm not going really fast in this video. Once you get some rhythm going, you can really fly with these things. This particular video is one I shot the other day, and I was just getting this thing going again for the first time in a long time. You'll notice that those wads, I have them down low. Usually I have them on a box, so I don't have to go up and down with them. I just bring my hand over. You can reload really fast. So, 2 or 3 minutes a box with these. 4 minutes with the 650. The other difference is that this machine is much smoother, and it takes much less pressure to push that bar down. The other machine, actually, you'll notice it's kind of jerking around while you're doing it. And it's actually hard on your hand. It hurts your hand when you do a lot of them. This one is smooth, and the handle's real heavy, so it doesn't take a lot of pressure to do this. The downside of this machine is that when you have a screw up, you have a screw up. It takes a half an hour to back everything out, clean it up, and start over again. The Mech 650, you can recover pretty quickly. So there you go, Nimrods. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. We'll do a little video, a startup of that, of the 366 we're showing here. And so there you go. Bunch of reloads fast. That's why we like progressives. Presses, that is. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you share it with your social media friends, your Instagrammers, your face pages, your Snap Slaps, whatever they call them. And consider becoming a Nimrod, because remember, Nimrod wants you to subscribe. Happy hunting, Nimrods!